I am preparing for my death. I am giving everything away.
Welcome to the Crucible Project podcast. The Crucible Project is a nonprofit organization committed to creating a world of men and women who live with integrity, grace, and courage, helping them to fulfill their God-given purpose. This podcast will discuss important and sometimes difficult topics while delivering practical life applications with men and women who are currently practicing this work. We are igniting Christ-like change in men and women through experiences of radical honesty and grace.
Hi and welcome to the Crucible Project podcast. I'm Martin Brooker, one of your Crucible Project podcast hosts. I'm excited today to have with me Athol Prior. I met Athol a few years ago, a man that I've come to value in my life, who's also an elder in the Crucible community here in Australia. Athol, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Martin.
Look, so great to have you on the show, and I'd love to let our listeners know a little bit who you are. Maybe you could give us the Athol Prior story. Maybe the condensed version.
Well, I grew up in Papua New Guinea. My dad was working up there. My mum and dad were working up there. I did my schooling in Australia, boarding school, which was a traumatic experience for me. I actually worked as a teacher in Papua New Guinea, returned to Australia after seeing Papua New Guinea achieve independence. So that was a very exciting experience for me, and I commenced a new career in Australia as a teacher. I married on return to Australia. I've raised a family, still happily married, kids, grandkids, the whole catastrophe. Yeah, very blessed.
Yeah. And a man of God.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
I have always been clear that I want to follow a journey of learning more about God, stepping into my faith journey, and I still feel like I'm a new believer in a sense, but I've always felt like that.
That's a great perspective. You've been involved with the Crucible Project here in Australia for over 10 years. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what that journey of Crucible has been, and why has it been so important, do you think, for men in Australia and women now as well to have something like Crucible Project here on our shores?
Well, what a journey. I heard about the Crucible Project, and I actually travelled to the US to experience it. I can remember the first Crucible weekend I attended, and the US leaders who befriended me and took me in. It was a transformational experience. It definitely changed my life. I had a very clear message and understanding from God that this is what He wanted to see happen in Australia, bring the Crucible Project to Australia. So when I returned, I reported back to a circle of men who were thinking about bringing the Crucible here, and I said with no hesitation, this is the right program for us. Let's go ahead and bring it. And so in 2013, the first Crucible weekend was held in Perth, Western Australia.
Yeah. So in those 10 years, what have you seen develop, and as a result of, I guess, a vision that God transmitted through you?
You know, I describe myself as a midwife. You know, it's not my baby, but I help with its delivery.
Nice.
And it's God's baby, it's God's ministry. So what I've seen from the very first weekend to where we are now is the growth of community. There's a depth of community. The other thing that I've seen is the growth of leadership. And I have to honour Crucible US leaders for being so intentional in growing and developing Australian leaders so that the Australian Crucible community could stand alone and stand on its own 2 feet and forge ahead. So those are the two things that stand out most for me.
Yeah, great. Thank you. One of the things that you've been also part of in recent years is developing the elders within the community of Crucible, not only in the US, but here in Australia. And I wonder if you could talk to us about what eldership is about and why it's so important.
Eldering, being an elder, is a journey, just like the whole of life is a journey. And I can trace my elder journey from the point where younger men were saying to me, Athol, we need you to be an elder. We need you to step into being an elder. And I was resistant to that. I didn't feel like I was qualified. I thought, I'm not that old, surely, that you see me as an elder. And yet they planted a seed in me, and gradually that developed. I took advantage of a number of programs that developed my elderhood. Some of those programs have been my Crucible journey, but other programs have been run by other brother organisations, men's work organisations. And I see eldering as an essential part of a man's journey. You know, we often talk about in men's work father hunger. And we don't talk about this so much, but I believe it's equally true to say that there is an elder hunger in men. Men are looking for an older man who will take an interest in them, who will listen to them, who will support them, encourage them, mentor them, and celebrate their successes with them.
Mm-hmm.
Eldering to me is a second half of life missional activity. And there's definitely a spiritual component to it. It's an opportunity to allow the Holy Spirit to flow through me and allow me to connect with men and allow men to be touched spiritually as I fulfill my roles as an elder.
Wow. I'm just sitting in that for a moment because that's so powerful. What do you think are some of the benefits that elders standing in that place can bring to a community like the Crucible?
Some of the things that I know are critically important roles that elders play and that I know I play. First of all, the whole elder experience is a subset of Christian leadership, of servant leadership. You know, so it's based on humility. It's based on not requiring status or role or importance, but being of service, serving with humility, serving with a mission that is God-given. Some of the other things that I love about eldering is it's an opportunity for me to bless. As an elder, I can bless younger men and older men as well, and women. There's so many opportunities to bless if I can only spot them and step into them, particularly with younger men and women. There's an opportunity for them to know that I'm present, supporting them, participating in their activities, and I'm witnessing their journey as a younger person. And they know that they are seen and heard and valued and appreciated. There's one last thing. As an elder, in the second half of life, I am preparing for my death. I am giving everything away at this stage of life. I'm creating a legacy and the legacy is made up of everything I've given away. And I'm modelling the great adventure of getting older to younger men, particularly, and women. And a part of that is making peace with the aging process, knowing that I'm going to progressively become more frail and less competent and able to be physically active, but it's an opportunity as that diminishes for me to step into my spiritual strength and my spiritual faith and my belief that there is something beyond this earthly life.
Yeah, wow. You talked about some of the benefits. I want to come and talk about mission and purpose a little bit later, but you talk about some of the benefits of an elder in a community like Crucible. Do you think that experience or that eldership has impacts beyond the community that is in that organisation? Is there an impact outside of what goes on inside the Crucible community?
Absolutely, yeah. You know, I'm an elder in my local church, and there, the church elder role is quite different to the role that I play in the Crucible project. And what I say when I'm asked to be a church elder is, yes, I'm happy to be a church elder, and I may not be the sort of church elder that you're looking for. I'm not going to be stepping into an authority-based role. I'm going to be stepping into a service role as an elder. So there's an obvious example of where I am involved as an elder in my church community. But not only that, in all areas of my life, wherever I am involved, I am an elder. And what I find is if I make myself available and I share that availability, so if I let men and women know, hey, I'm available, then they connect with me and they seek out my support. You know, so I am a Crucible life coach as well, and I do that as an elder. And so that's another area where I elder. But not only that, I've been approached by a Crucible brother, as an example, who's having a struggle in his relationship with his adult son, and I'm meeting with those two men separately to begin with, but the next meeting will be bringing them together, and I'm working with them to support their reconciliation and reuniting as father and son. And that's simply because they know I'm available and accessible. I like to use the biblical reference of the elder at the gate. In ancient and probably more modern Hebrew times, everyone knew where the elders were. They would be sitting at the gate, and if anyone needed access to an elder, then they'd go to the city gates, and there would be elders available who could listen to them, talk to them, provide wisdom. You know, so I consider myself to be an elder at the gate, available, accessible, and open to serving in whatever way I'm needed.
Yeah. I'm appreciating the nature of that service that you embarked on there, and I'm getting the sense that eldership, part of it at least, is about being that sage and bringing the wisdom of lived experience.
That's true. You know, so the funny thing is, I don't feel like a sage. You know, I feel like an ordinary man with all the frailties and shadows and wounds and struggles that we all have. However, it is true that I do have lived experience, and a part of my lived experience allows me to be compassionate to those frailties and that brokenness in myself and in others. And I try and bring that humble, grace giving, accepting, non-judgmental approach to my connection with people. That might be what is described as wisdom. I work hard at not giving an unsolicited advice, but people do ask for my advice.
Yes.
And when I'm asked, I do share what from the heart, what I'm feeling God is wanting me to share.
Yes. From that, I'm sensing effectively a spiritual gift there, and I think what's important is that we all need people in our lives who we can go to in a safe way, knowing that actually what we're going to get when we ask is actually not judgment, not opinion,
Yeah,
but actually
yeah,
wisdom of the
yeah.
ages and lived experience that actually can help us take perspective on our own lives. And I think that's powerful.
You know, the Crucible principle is that everybody has within them whatever they need to take their own journey and deal with their own issues and problems. And my role as an elder is to help them find that within them
Yeah.
and support them in accessing their own internal skill set, their own gifting, their own mission, uh, and empower them as they take that journey.
Yeah. So, how do elders support those that are new to the Crucible Project community?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, the first role of elders is on a Crucible weekend when we're present, we're available, we're holding space, we identify ourselves, we pray. If there are issues, then people can talk to us, men
Yes.
can talk to us. So, you know, that establishes uh, the presence and the role of elders right from the very beginning when men attend the Crucible weekend. After the Crucible weekend, participants are invited to move into growth groups, and we ensure that every growth group has an elder, an identified elder, who again is fulfilling that same continuing role of being available. And as an elder in a growth group, I'm supporting new brothers who have recently completed a Crucible weekend, as well as supporting the staff and the leaders of the
Yes.
group. You know, so as the journey of Crucible continues, elders are always present and always available and always have a recognized role, a role that is valued and supported by leadership.
Yes.
You know, because elders aren't frontline leaders. We have weekend leaders and we have elders who support weekend leaders. You know, so the role of an elder is to take one step back
Yes.
and support
Yes.
rather than directly
Yeah.
lead.
Yeah. So important. And having been through my own weekend where you were an elder and also experiencing your support of a growth group, I echo those. I resonate with that. It's been actually, in my experience, quite unique to have that um, that sort of. It's almost the fact that eldership is woven into that community in a way that, again, supports it in a way that helps it make it stronger.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
countercultural. You know, the cultural perception of older men and women is they're on the scrap heap. They're no longer working, they're no longer productive
Yeah.
units in society. They might as well just get on their rocking chair and rock backwards and forwards on the
Yes.
veranda. Well, the Crucible gives the lie to that. Elders are an essential part of the process
Yes.
of creating community and ensuring that community is sustainable and is growing and fulfills God's mission for it.
You talked about the second half of life, a concept that Richard Rohr talks about in his book Falling Upwards and in a couple of other places. It occurs to me that if eldership comes in that second half of life, it's because that person has actually evaluated their life and stripped out the things that do not support an integrated life that's in integrity with God's purpose in our life. Interested in your thoughts?
Yes. Yeah, I love Richard Rohr. I'm hoping to attend one of the elders' rites of passage programs that Richard Rohr set up, which will be run in the US in September of this year. And I believe very strongly in the concept of the two halves of life. Interestingly enough, Richard Rohr got his insights around this from Carl Jung.
Yes.
And Richard Rohr explains that the first half of life is where we are building a healthy ego, the ego self. We're focused on our career, our family, our contribution to community, to church, to God's work, and the focus is on what we're doing. And then the second half of life is where we realize that, yes, that was important, and there's more. There's more to life than that. There's more to us than that. We get to find out that actually we're not human doings, we're human beings. Yes. And we get to take the inner journey and find that inner part of self, which is where soul and spirit combine, and we see that there's a bigger purpose, there's a bigger, higher self, that we gain our meaning from the mission that God has bestowed on us and the identity that God has bestowed on us. And so while the first half of life we're building, the second half of life we're finding ways to let it go, yes, to give it away, yes, to prepare for the journey downwards, to the point where we accept our ultimate passing, yes, and we can go ahead and move into that phase with faith, with a calm acceptance, and with a knowledge that as our physical strength diminishes, our spiritual strength increases.
Yeah. I'd make an observation that a Crucible weekend can be one of those opportunities where you help to kind of identify that ego that's not been serving you well, that you can also, through Crucible, actually get closer to understanding your own mission and purpose.
Yes. So I have a perspective on ego. There's healthy ego, yes, which does serve us, yes, well. And if I think about my career, my commitment to social justice and the work that I did over many years, decades, was done with a vision of making the world a better place. And that's healthy ego, yes, right? Yeah. I'm building a better place by my contribution and fulfilling God's mission, yes, for, yes, me. And there's another side. There's the true self, which healthy ego can be a part of, and then there's the false self, where there's a part of ego which is very self-centered, yes, and which doesn't serve us well. And when we do a Crucible weekend, we get a chance to see that selfish part of ego sometimes for the first time,
Yes.
usually for the first time,
Yeah.
and recognize that there's a deep longing in us that comes out through the ego. The strategies to achieve the deep longing are often counterproductive, but the longing is God-given.
Yes. Yeah. We touched on it a couple of times already. I want to come to mission and purpose for you at this age and stage of life as an elder. You retired a few years ago, actually before, my sense was around the time in which Crucible came to Australia. But what's that mission and purpose for you right now in sort of, retired from full-time work, but living a full life with regards to mission and purpose? I'd love to hear a bit more about that.
Yeah. Well, I've retired from paid full-time work. I feel like I've been doing full-time work, developing the Crucible ministry here in Australia. However, only last year I stepped down from being on the management committee, and with some trepidation and some inner struggle, started practicing what I preach around giving it away and handing the baton on to other men. And I found that challenging. I still feel like, hey, I could jump in there and still be involved. And yet God is very clearly saying to me, no, Athol, that's not what I want you to do right now.
Yes.
You have done your job there. Thank you. Well done, good and faithful servant. Now I've got a new role for you, and this is the role of a much more personal approach to ministry. It's what we often refer to as pastoral ministry. It's connecting one-on-one with individuals and making a difference in the lives of individuals. So I do have a mission statement. My mission statement is to help build communities of compassion, connection, and adventure. And life is a big adventure. My slight shifting of mission at this stage in life is moving away from working organisationally and working much more in that pastoral care area.
Yeah. Wow. I'm sitting in a good place. I'm feeling that energy of a man who's on purpose, and so I really honour you for that. It's been beautiful conversation.
Yeah, I might say, Martin, that the Crucible project is committed to further developing the role of elders. So there's been a process over the last, I'm going to say 5 years, where the Crucible project leadership has developed a role statement for elders. It's developed elder values. It's created an elder council that is going to guide the continuing support and encouragement, development of elders in the Crucible project. And later this year, in October this year, there is going to be the first elders retreat specifically for men wanting to step into and develop their eldering skill set, their eldering gifting, their eldering potential. So the Crucible project is an absolutely wonderful organisation to be a part of. And what a blessing to have men on the opposite side of the world who are my dear brothers and who I connect with on a regular basis, young and old. So I strongly believe that God gives us ministry to bring us joy. And the Crucible project has brought me much joy in my life. And I look forward to continuing to experience life and life more abundant as I continue with this
Yeah.
elder journey.
Yes. Well, Athol, I want to thank you for bringing joy to the men that I know that you've impacted in your eldering. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast today. Look forward to catching up with you in person sooner rather than later, and checking in on the eldering journey as we go forward. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here today.
Yeah. Thank you, Martin. You've been very easy to talk to.
Awesome. All right. Catch you soon, mate.
For more information about our weekends, please go to thecrucibleproject.org. Or if you're ready to get started on your transformational journey right now, you can connect with one of our Crucible certified coaches for a free 30-minute session at thecrucibleproject.org/coaching. That's thecrucibleproject.org/coaching. If you like what you heard, connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Rate and review wherever you are listening, and don't forget to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform. Thank you for listening.